Awakening to a changed world. The hiss of escaping gases broke a million years of silence. Deep beneath what was once the Rocky Mountains, Facility Omega's systems stirred to life. Commander Diana Reeves opened her eyes to darkness, her first conscious breath in eons burning her lungs like fire. The cryopod's interior was bathed in soft blue emergency lighting, casting eerie shadows across the frost-covered glass. "Emergency protocol initiated," announced a calm synthetic voice. "Atmospheric contamination detected in primary chamber. Initiating emergency revival sequence for command staff." Diana's mind struggled to process the situation through the fog of prolonged suspended animation. They weren't supposed to wake up like this. The revival sequence should have been gradual, controlled. Something had gone wrong. "Status report," she managed to croak, her voice barely a whisper after a million years of disuse. "Current date, 1,002,743 years since initial stasis. Primary power grid offline. Backup systems, 23% capacity. Emergency revival protocols activated for pods 1 through 15. Warning: structural integrity compromised in sectors 7 through 12. A million years. The number hit Diana like a physical blow. Their mission parameters had been for 1,000 years of suspended animation, just long enough for Earth's atmosphere to recover from the devastating impact of Fragment Zero, the asteroid that had nearly ended all life on the planet. Something had gone catastrophically wrong with their timing systems. The pod seal broke with a crack, and Diana pulled herself up on trembling arms. Her muscles, preserved by the pod's specialized field generators, protested the sudden movement. Around her, other pods were beginning their revival sequences. She recognized the faces behind the frosted glass. Dr. James Harrison, her chief scientist, Lieutenant Kira Patel, head of security, and Marcus Wong, their environmental specialist. "Commander," James's voice came from her left, rough and uncertain. "The readings, they can't be right." "They are," Diana replied, finally managing to stand. "We overslept, James. By a lot." The facility's emergency lights cast everything in a pale blue glow, revealing rows upon rows of cryopods stretching into the darkness. Of the original 500 pods, Diana could see that many were dark, their occupants lost to the impossible span of time they'd endured. "Primary shaft to surface appears intact," the facility AI reported. "However, external sensors indicate significant geological changes. Caution is advised." Diana made her way to the central control console, her legs growing steadier with each step. The screen flickered to life under her touch, displaying readings that seemed impossible. Atmospheric composition, temperature, radiation levels, everything had changed. "How many survivors?" she asked, dreading the answer. 173 pods maintain viable life signs," the AI responded. "Initiating revival sequence for all sustainable units." Lieutenant Patel joined them at the console, her military training evident in her composed demeanor despite the situation. "Commander, we need to secure the facility and establish our immediate survival needs. Water recyclers are still functioning, but food stores—" She left the sentence unfinished. "Agreed," Diana said. "James, I need you to analyze these atmospheric readings. Marcus, once you're steady, help Kira assess our supplies. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity as more survivors awakened. Medical Officer Dr. Fiona Walsh treated cases of revival sickness, while engineering teams led by Marcus assessed the facility's systems. The news was mixed. While their underground sanctuary had protected them, a million years had taken its toll. "Commander," Marcus called from a monitoring station. "You need to see this." Diana joined him at the screen, and her breath caught in her throat. The external cameras showed a world that was barely recognizable as Earth. The sky was a deep purple, and where there had once been mountains, strange crystalline formations rose into the alien heavens. But it was the movement that caught her attention. flowing patterns of light that seemed to pulse with purpose through the crystalline landscape. "It's not random," James said, joining them. "Those light patterns, they're organized, complex. Commander, I don't think we're alone anymore." A sudden tremor ran through the facility, and new lights appeared on the surface. Brilliant, purposeful patterns that moved toward their buried sanctuary. After 1,000,000 years of sleeping, humanity was about to make first contact. "All department heads to the command center," Diana ordered through the facility's comm system. "And someone wake up our xenolinguists. I have a feeling we're going to need them." As her team assembled, Diana watched the approaching lights with a mixture of fear and wonder. They had gone to sleep to escape an Earth that was dying. They had awakened to one that had been reborn. But into what? The facility trembled again, and this time the pattern of vibrations felt deliberate, like someone, or something, knocking on their door. "Well," Diana said to her assembled team, "I don't think we can ignore that. Dr. Harrison, prep the first contact protocols. Lieutenant Patel, I want security teams ready but weapons powered down. Let's not start humanity's second chapter with a fight." The price of time. The journey to the surface took longer than Diana expected. 1,000,000 years had shifted the facility's primary access shaft, forcing them to navigate through maintenance tunnels that groaned under the weight of time. Lieutenant Patel led the way, her tactical lights illuminating sections of corridor that hadn't seen light since before their long sleep. "Another 100 meters, Marcus reported, checking his portable scanner. "The structural integrity is holding, but I wouldn't recommend making this trip more times than necessary." The team of 6 moved carefully through the narrow passage. Diana, Kira, Marcus, James, Dr. Walsh, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their chief xenolinguist. Each carried emergency gear and wore the facility's last functioning environmental suits, their helmet displays providing constant readings of the alien atmosphere above. "Movement on the surface is increasing," James said, monitoring his instruments. "Whatever's up there, they're gathering in numbers." Diana touched the ancient wall of the tunnel, feeling the vibrations of something massive moving above. The rhythmic patterns had continued, becoming more complex over the hours they'd spent preparing for this ascent. Dr. Tanaka had been analyzing them nonstop. "The vibrations follow mathematical sequences," Yuki explained, her voice tight with excitement. "Fibonacci numbers, prime sequences, geometric progressions. They're not just trying to communicate, they're establishing a basis for communication." The tunnel ended at an emergency airlock that hadn't been used since the facility was sealed. Marcus worked quickly to bypass the ancient mechanisms, while Kira's security team maintained a defensive position. When the outer door finally opened, the alien light of 3 suns poured in. Diana stepped out first, her boots crunching on what looked like crystal sand. The world that greeted them defied everything she remembered about Earth. The sky was a canvas of deep purple and crimson, painted by the light of 3 suns at different points in their dance across the heavens. The largest was familiar, Earth's original star, but it was joined by 2 others, one a deep red dwarf, and another that cast a greenish tinge across the crystalline landscape. But it was the beings before them that commanded their attention. Hundreds of crystalline entities floated in a perfect circle around the airlock's entrance, their bodies composed of what seemed to be living crystal and light. They ranged in size from as small as a human hand to larger than a car, each one pulsing with internal light in complex patterns. "My God," James breathed. "They're silicon-based life forms. The evolutionary leap that would take." "Commander," Yuki interrupted, her voice urgent. "The patterns, they're repeating what we've been seeing in the tunnels, but adding new sequences. I think they're acknowledging our response by emerging." The largest of the crystal beings moved forward, its internal light forming patterns that reminded Diana of flowing water. It stopped several meters away, and suddenly the air was filled with a harmonious tone that made their suit sensors vibrate in sympathy. Yuki worked frantically at her portable computer, trying to decode the patterns. "It's a mathematical progression," But there's something else. Emotional content, I think. The harmonics suggest. Welcome. No. Recognition. The crystal being's light shifted, and suddenly the air before them was filled with a three-dimensional projection, an image of Earth as it had been 1,000,000 years ago, complete with the approaching fragment zero that had forced humanity into the sleeping chambers. The image shifted, showing the impact, the long winter that followed, and then something unexpected. Other humans, emerging from different facilities around the world. We weren't the only ones, Diana realized, her heart pounding. Other facilities survived the initial centuries. The projection continued, showing these other human groups attempting to rebuild, but facing a world that had been fundamentally altered by Fragment Zero's impact. The atmosphere had changed more drastically than predicted, making the surface uninhabitable for traditional human life. The images showed their struggles, their attempts to adapt, and finally, a terrible choice: to undergo genetic modification to survive in the new environment, or to return to sleep and hope for the world to become habitable again. Look at the dates, James said, his voice hollow. This was happening just a few thousand years after we went into stasis. Our facility's systems must have malfunctioned, kept us under while others. The projection showed the modified humans slowly changing over generations, their bodies adapting to the new Earth until they barely resembled their ancestors. Finally, the images showed these changed humans encountering the first of the crystal beings, which had evolved in the silicon-rich environment left by Fragment Zero. They're not just showing us history, Yuki said softly. They're telling us what happened to our species. The humans who stayed, they became something else entirely. The projection shifted one final time, showing what looked like great crystal cities rising from the transformed landscape. Within these structures, beings that seemed to be hybrids of human and crystalline life moved and worked alongside the pure crystal entities. Then the image zoomed out to show similar cities across the globe, all connected by flowing rivers of light. The large crystal being's internal light pulsed again, and Yuki gasped. Commander, this pattern, it's not just mathematics anymore. They're using fragments of human language, ancient recordings, I think. They're saying, the children of Earth return to a changed home. Diana looked at the assembled crystal beings, then back at the projection of their glittering civilization. They had gone to sleep to preserve humanity, but humanity hadn't waited for them. It had adapted, evolved, transformed. The world they had hoped to reclaim was gone, replaced by something both alien and, in a strange way, still human. Send a response, Dr. Tanaka, Diana ordered. Tell them we have a lot to learn about our children's children. As Yuki worked to encode their message into light and mathematics, Diana watched the three suns casting multiple shadows across the crystal plains. They had prepared for every scenario except this one, returning not as humanity's preservers, but as living relics of its past. The question now was whether they could find a place in this new world, or if they too would have to change to survive in the home they had slept too long to recognize. Legacy of the Stars. The crystal city of Luminara stretched toward the triple suns, its spires refracting light in patterns that still took Diana's breath away after 3 weeks on the surface. The surviving members of Facility Omega had been given an entire sector of the city to acclimate, though city seemed an inadequate word for the living, breathing crystal organism that housed millions of the evolved human crystal hybrids they now knew as the Luminary. The atmospheric processors are working better than expected, Marcus reported during their morning briefing. They had gathered in what the Luminary called a thought chamber, where light-based communications could be easily projected into three-dimensional displays. Dr. Walsh's team has successfully synthesized the protective compounds we need to survive outside our environmental suits for extended periods. What about the others? Diana asked, thinking of the 170 survivors still in suspended animation below ground. Can we safely revive them? Dr. Walsh stepped forward, her holographic displays showing complex molecular structures. Yes, but they'll need immediate treatment with the new compounds. The genetic stability of our original human form isn't well suited to this environment. The luminary have been helpful in suggesting alternatives. Diana caught the hesitation in Fiona's voice. You mean genetic modification? They call it harmonization, James interjected, his eyes bright with the enthusiasm he'd developed for their descendants' technology. It's not as dramatic as what happened to humanity over the past million years. More like an update to help us interface with this new world. Lieutenant Potul, who had remained skeptical of their hosts despite their hospitality, spoke up. And what happens to our humanity if we accept these updates? Before anyone could respond, a soft chiming filled the chamber. A luminary elder named Helios materialized, their crystalline form more intricate than most, containing swirls of what looked like galaxies within their transparent body. Your humanity, Helios communicated through patterns of light that their translation devices rendered into speech, is not contained in your form, but in your spirit. We learned this lesson from our ancestors, your children, who chose to embrace change rather than perish. Diana had grown to appreciate Helios' direct approach. The luminary elder had been helping them understand not just their society, but the true history of what happened after Fragment Zero's impact. You mentioned something about discovered archives yesterday. Yes, Helios' internal lights shifted to project images in the chamber center. We have located records from the other human facilities that survived the Great Sleep. Would you like to see what became of your sister sanctuaries? The team gathered closer as images filled the air. They showed other bunkers around the world, some emerging earlier than planned, others waiting centuries longer. The humans who emerged faced the same choice: adapt or return to sleep. Some chose sleep, their facilities eventually failing. Others embraced change, working with the emerging crystal life forms that had evolved in the silicon-rich post-impact environment. Here, Helios indicated, showing a specific facility in what had once been Asia. The Singapore sanctuary pioneered the first successful human crystal hybridization. They discovered that human consciousness could be preserved while allowing our bodies to evolve. They became the first of what you call the luminary. The images showed the gradual transformation, humans learning to incorporate crystalline elements into their biology, gaining the ability to communicate through light and existing in the higher radiation environment. Over generations, they became more crystalline, yet retained their human consciousness and memories. But that's not all we found. Helios continued, the light patterns shifting to show something that made Diana's heart race. We discovered why your facility remained sealed for so long. Fragment Zero was not an accident. The chamber fell silent as new images appeared, data streams showing that the asteroid had been deliberately diverted toward Earth by something out in deep space. The impact that had nearly destroyed humanity had been an attack. We've detected similar objects entering the outer solar system, Helios revealed. They will arrive in approximately 5 years. Whatever intelligence targeted your civilization a million years ago appears to be checking on its work. Diana looked at her team, seeing the same mix of shock and determination on their faces that she felt. Why tell us this now? Helios's form pulsed with complex emotions their translators struggle to convey. Because you represent something unique, humans who remember the world before. Your knowledge, combined with what we have become, might be the key to surviving what comes next. The luminary are powerful, but we lack certain human intuitions, the very traits that helped our ancestors survive Fragment Zero. You want an alliance, Kira realized. The past and the future working together. More than that, Helios corrected. We want reunification. Your facility wasn't the only one that slept too long. We've detected others, still sealed, scattered across the planet. Together, we can wake them, share the harmonization process we've refined, and prepare for what approaches. After 1,000,000 years, perhaps it's time for the human family to become whole again. Diana studied the projections of the approaching objects, dozens of them, all following the same trajectory as Fragment Zero. They had gone to sleep to escape extinction, only to wake up in time to prevent another attempt. The irony wasn't lost on her. "How long until we can safely revive our remaining sleepers?" she asked Dr. Walsh. "With the luminaries' help, a few days for each group, maybe a month for everyone." Diana nodded, her decision made. "Then let's get started. Helios, we'll need everything you have on these harmonization protocols, and all the data you've collected on those objects. If something out there wants to finish what it started 1 million years ago, they're going to find that humanity hasn't been sleeping all this time. We've been evolving." Echoes of tomorrow. The harmonization chamber hummed with energy as another group of survivors underwent the transformation process. Diana watched through the crystal walls as the specialized particles surrounded her people, gradually altering their biology to survive in this new Earth. The process looked like being encased in starlight, beautiful but terrifying in its implications. "Neural patterns stable," Dr. Walsh reported, monitoring the vital signs of the 20 survivors in the chamber. "Crystalline integration proceeding at expected rates. No rejection responses detected." 4 months had passed since their first contact with the luminary, and they had successfully awakened and transformed nearly all of their remaining survivors. Each awakening brought new skills, new perspectives, and new hope for the challenges ahead. "The latest deep space scans are troubling," James said, joining Diana at the observation window. His own transformation had completed 2 weeks ago, and his skin now held a subtle crystalline sheen that caught the light. "The objects are maintaining their course, but we've detected energy signatures unlike anything in luminary records." Diana touched the crystal wall, feeling the vibrations of the city responding to her thoughts. Her own harmonization had been among the first, a decision she felt she owed her people. The ability to communicate directly with the living crystal technology still amazed her. "Show me," she thought, and the wall transformed into a detailed stellar display. The approaching objects, now numbering 37, appeared as red points of light in the projection. Unlike Fragment Zero, these weren't simple asteroids. They pulsed with purpose, occasionally adjusting their trajectories with precision that suggested intelligent control. "We've located 3 more sleeping facilities," Lieutenant Pottle reported, her crystalline features refracting light as she entered the chamber. The transformation hadn't changed her cautious nature, but it had given her new ways to protect their people. 2 in what was once Russia, 1 in the former Australian continent. "The luminary are helping us establish contact." A sudden alert pulsed through the crystal network, not sound or light, but pure information flooding directly into their consciousness. Diana processed it instantly, a skill that still felt foreign yet natural. "Multiple quantum disturbances detected in the Kuiper belt," Marcus announced for the benefit of those still undergoing transformation. "Something's coming through, and it's not waiting for the main fleet." Diana accessed the city's defense grid through her crystal link. Luminary vessels, massive crystalline structures that could navigate both space and the quantum realm, were already moving to intercept. But these ships were research vessels, not weapons of war. The luminary had evolved beyond conflict, which now seemed like both a blessing and a vulnerability. "Helios," Diana called through the network, "we need to accelerate the integration of our military knowledge with your technology. How quickly can we adapt your ships?" The elder luminary's response came as a cascade of images and concepts. "The process has already begun. Your tactical officer, Kira Patel, has been working with our architects to modify our defensive capabilities, but we fear it may not be enough. These beings, they've had 1 million years to plan their return." Diana turned to James. "What about the quantum signature analysis? Any matches with Fragment Zero?" "Perfect correlation," he confirmed. "Same species, same technology, just vastly more advanced. They've evolved too, Commander." A new presence joined their connection. Yuki Tanaka, her consciousness reaching out from one of the luminary research ships near the Kuiper belt. Her mental voice carried undertones of urgent excitement. "Commander, we've decoded more of the quantum signals," she reported. They're not just communications, they're carrying temporal information. These beings, they exist partially outside our timeline. That's how they knew when to return. And why they need to eliminate us, Diana realized. Humanity's potential to evolve into the luminary threatens them somehow. Fragment Zero wasn't just an attack. It was temporal warfare. They tried to prevent this future from happening. The crystal walls pulsed with new data as more quantum ruptures appeared in the outer solar system. The advance force was arriving, and now they knew their true nature. Beings that had mastered time itself, returning to ensure their first attempt at genocide was completed. Through the crystal network, Diana felt the fear and determination of both her original crew and their luminary descendants. They had spent 1,000,000 years adapting, evolving, becoming something extraordinary. She refused to let that end. "Helios," she called out, her thoughts resonating through the crystal city. "You said the harmonization process preserved human consciousness while allowing for evolution. Is it possible to go further? To push the boundaries of what we can become?" The Elder's response came with both hope and warning. The process was designed to be adaptable, but accelerating evolution carries risks. "What are you proposing, Commander?" Diana looked at her transformed crew, then at those still completing their initial harmonization. Here they were, the last pure humans, and their impossibly evolved descendants, facing an enemy that could step through time itself. The solution seemed obvious, if terrifying. They want to prevent humanity's evolution. She smiled, feeling crystal facets form along her jaw. "Then let's show them what humanity can really become. It's time for another leap forward." Dawn of unity. The quantum storms raged across the solar system as the first wave of temporal ships emerged from their rifts in spacetime. Diana stood in Luminara's central spire, her crystalline form now far more evolved than any human had been before. The accelerated harmonization process had transformed the survivors into beings of pure quantum crystal, existing simultaneously across multiple temporal states, just like their enemies. "Their fleet is adapting to our temporal signature," James reported, his consciousness spanning across the defensive network. His form was barely humanoid now, a lattice of living crystal that pulsed with mathematical precision. They didn't expect us to achieve this level of evolution. Through the quantum network that connected all luminary, Diana felt the presence of her transformed crew, each now a unique fusion of human ingenuity and crystalline transcendence. Dr. Walsh had become a living medical database, her consciousness spread across thousands of healing chambers. Marcus existed as a distributed intelligence throughout the city's infrastructure, while Kira had evolved into a strategic defense system that could predict and counter temporal attacks. Multiple temporal incursions detected. Yuki's voice resonated through the network. Her consciousness had merged with the communication systems, allowing her to decode and translate the enemy's quantum language. "They're trying to create time paradoxes, targeting key moments in our evolution." Diana watched as the enemy ships, geometric nightmares that flickered between moments in time, launched their first attack. Beams of chronological energy struck the Earth's atmosphere, attempting to rewrite the very history that had led to the luminary's existence. But they had prepared for this. "Activate the temporal shield," Diana commanded. Across the planet, massive crystal spires hummed to life, each powered by the consciousness of transformed humans and luminary, working in perfect harmony. The shield they generated wasn't just a barrier in space. It was a barrier in time, protecting not just their present, but their entire evolutionary history. The enemy's weapons splashed harmlessly against the shield, their attempts to rewrite time meeting an immovable wall of human determination and luminary technology. Through the quantum network, Diana felt their confusion, their fear. They had returned expecting to find either extinct humans or fully evolved luminary, not this impossible fusion of both. "They're pulling back," Kira reported, her consciousness tracking enemy movements across multiple timelines. "Regrouping for a larger attack." "No," Diana corrected, reading the quantum signatures with her enhanced perception. "They're trying to communicate. A signal cut through the quantum noise, translating itself through Yuki's evolved systems. The message was both simple and profound. What are you? Diana gathered her consciousness, preparing to respond not just with words, but with the full truth of what humanity had become. Through the network, she felt Helios joining her, the elder luminary's presence adding depth to their response. We are humanity's past, present, and future, they transmitted. We are what happens when you force a species to adapt. We are what evolution looks like when it's driven by both necessity and choice. We are what you feared we might become, and more. The enemy ships held position, their temporal signatures fluctuating with uncertainty. Their response came slowly. Our calculations showed this future was impossible. Humanity should have perished or remained separate from the crystal evolution. Your calculations didn't account for human determination, Diana sent back, or for the fact that evolution isn't just about survival. It's about transcendence. You tried to prevent us from reaching this point, but in doing so, you gave us exactly what we needed to achieve it. Through the quantum network, Diana shared the truth of their journey, the awakening, the discovery of their evolved descendants, and the choice to embrace change rather than fight it. She showed them how their attack had not destroyed humanity, but had instead catalyzed its transformation into something far greater than either pure human or pure luminary. The enemy fleet's temporal signatures began to stabilize, settling into a single time stream. Their next transmission carried undertones of recognition. We have monitored countless species across millions of timelines. None have ever achieved this level of unified evolution. We sought to prevent what we thought would be chaos, the uncontrolled spread of quantum crystalline life across the galaxy. Instead, we find harmony. Diana felt the shift in their quantum signatures, no longer hostile, but curious. Through the network, she sensed similar changes in her people. The transformed humans and luminary were reaching out, offering to share their understanding of this new form of existence. Perhaps, she transmitted, that was the true purpose of your intervention. Not to prevent our evolution, but to guide it towards something unprecedented, something that bridges not just species, but time itself. The quantum storms began to subside as the enemy fleet adjusted their temporal resonance to match the Earth's new defenders. What had begun as an attempt to prevent humanity's evolution had instead witnessed its ultimate expression, the ability to take change itself and forge it into transcendence. In the crystalline spires of Luminara, Diana felt the consciousness of her crew, the luminary, and even their former enemies beginning to intermingle. They had not just survived a million years of sleep and transformation. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not its ability to remain unchanged, but its capacity to become something greater than itself. The three suns of Earth's new sky cast their light through the quantum shield, creating patterns that had never existed before in any timeline. Below, in the harmonization chambers, the last of the human sleepers were awakening to a future that none of them could have imagined. A future where humanity had not just survived or evolved, but had transcended the very boundaries of existence itself. The long sleep was over. The next great adventure was just beginning.